So I want to start here with the fact that we are in Qatar. It is our host city, and Rwanda in particular has called Qatar a strategic partner. You've talked about how you want to enhance the relationship with this host country. Talk to us about what that looks like for you in the next few years.
Well, first of all, we have to be aware of the world we live in, and in it we have to invest and grow, and there's no country that can manage that alone, and particularly for a small country like mine, we therefore have to be having a vision of what we want to do, and then forge these partnerships. Like indeed, you've pointed to one of the strongest partners we have for Rwanda and for Africa, actually, is Qatar. And it was a partnership of choice that we made. We scan across the world. There is this region, the Gulf region, and you know there has been, it's very clear, if you look up to the Gulf region, India, Southeast Asia. On the map, certainly these are growth leaders,
right.
and also provide, therefore, a huge opportunity. Right. And therefore, for us, there are key areas we look at when we are trying to make these investments, where it is, and we are looking at market leaders in different areas. For example, with the Qatar, we are partnering in aviation. Qatar Airways is a leader in this sector. And we have been looking at other areas where we can work together with other countries, but we have the opportunity to work very strongly with...
Right, and we saw Qatar Airways actually open up the first cargo hub in Rwanda, but there's also a plan for Qatar to partner with Rwanda for an airport. Can you talk to us about where you're at in negotiations, when we'll actually see the building begin?
We've done all that with the negotiations, and we are actually implementing what has been done. We are partnering in the airline, but also in the airport that we are jointly investing in. Work is in progress. We've gone a long way. We're just trying to speed it up to make sure that we are already up and running.
What could we potentially see by the end of this year in terms of development with this airport?
By the end of the year, say, the airline is very strong already. It's growing very fast. The airport, maybe we should be around 70% of that done. And I guess in the next year, sometime in the third or fourth quarter, we shall be seeing things standing and going.
And we know, I mean, you mentioned some of the partners that Rwanda is working with. I think it's all clear to everyone just how much of a tourism and investment destination that Rwanda has become. You mentioned the Qatar Airways partnership. There was also the renewed partnership with the Premier League team, PSG. Some of your critics, though, say that a lot of these partnerships are just to mask some of the human rights concerns in the country. I mean, what do you say to that?
Well, I would have been surprised if you didn't bring that up, because that's the talking point of every... But this discussion is about economic partnerships, it's about growth, it's about... So let me tell you briefly what we are about. I mentioned that we are seeking partnerships with market leaders. We talked about aviation. We have invested also in, and with Europe, in biotechnology. We have, in fact, we are now beginning to manufacture, maybe starting with August, vaccines. We are working with BioNTech Yes, we are also partnering with NBA for Basketball Africa League, which is based in Rwanda, and so on and so forth. So, in fact, by making progress on this front, the economic front, and providing for our people, we are dealing with human rights issues. Because the basic thing is the needs of people. That's what we are looking at. The second area we are looking at is innovation and startups. And we are having partnerships in these areas as well. For example, with innovation and the startups, we have one of a kind for drone precision delivery. Right. You have heard of a company called Zipline, yep, which started in Rwanda, and we are working together, and it's a company that is growing across the continent and beyond. And then we have Norsken. It's a Swedish company. It has established a hub in the East African region, and they are helping startup companies, and they have created a technology hub in Kigali. So really this is the medicine for answering the human rights question.
Is it the medicine though? Because we've heard from a number of countries talk about just how concerned they are about the stability of the region in particular when it comes to Rwanda and Congo and the human rights situation. So is it the medicine? I mean, what is it that you're actually doing for the local communities there to better the situation and not spill out into an all-out war?
It's the medicine because we may not be able to stop problems of instability anywhere in the world. They have different causes and they have to be addressed differently, as you see across the world, in actual fact. Yeah. But you are talking about Rwanda or our region. I don't think you imagine that the source of instability of the region, whether it is Sudan or Somalia or beyond, like in Central African Republic, or terrorism we had in Mozambique, is all coming from Rwanda. I don't think so. But for the problems between Rwanda and DRC, that has a process that is addressing that.
Where's the process at right now?
The process is led by Angola and also the East African region. We have two processes, one of Nairobi, another of Luanda in Angola. And these discussions are going on. In fact, the African Union itself is dealing with the matter. And the UN, which has been there for the last 20 years, you would imagine maybe with the amount of money spent there and the time spent, we would actually not be having problems since the UN is the leader in trying to help to create peace.
Are you willing to meet with President Felix Tshisekedi about the conflict that's happening?
We have met many times over that, and we shall continue, but I have indicated to you that we have frameworks in which we are working. So I don't know of any problem that you have in your mind about meeting, but we've been meeting several times.
Do you see the conflict coming to an end soon? I mean, Rwanda is going to have elections next year. I mean, is this something that you're committed to seeing end while you're still in office?
I'm wondering if you're imagining that if there is a problem like that involving countries or people and for different sorts of causes, that there is one person that has the key to addressing the issue. But maybe one person or one country is part of the solution, but is not the solution, but we contribute to that. So I think maybe we can continue with the discussion in the context of why we are here, and then we leave the matters to be handled by those who are already handling it.
Let's also talk about, because you mentioned we are here at the Qatar Economic Forum. Rwanda has, at a time when a lot of African countries have not been able to pay back debt, has been able to pay back a $400 million Eurobond. Do you see the country potentially going back to the international market soon? I mean, what is it that you are having discussions with your officials?
Whenever there is a need, we will always go back.
How much would you be?
Well, it depends on the problem we want to address. Maybe, but we don't go back maybe for the same, we go back for more because we've been growing. We have investments to make in infrastructure. We have investments to make in the area of manufacturing, as I have mentioned to you. Yep. We are busy building a country, so we will need resources which will always not be available until we go to the market. So we first of all, we wanted and have been able to establish ourselves as people that are reliable, that can pay our debt. That's key. So we want to build on that and continue doing more. We don't go to the market or borrow for the sake of it. We want to invest in those sectors I have mentioned to you that will have good returns and justify our investments, and also contribute to the well-being and the development of our people.
There's a lot of concern, though, when we talk about investment and extending financing with African countries, that there's unfair treatment when it comes to financing. Do you think developed economies need to rethink how they're extending financing to African countries, especially when you consider, what's happening in Ghana and Zambia? I mean, do you think there needs to be a rethinking of how this is working?
Well, we need to be rethinking, but we also need to be finding ways of doing better than probably we have had in the past. And part of it I have just mentioned, and that is the borrowers and the lenders have to be focusing on that which makes sense to them, especially the borrowers have to. Which areas do you really want to cover? Where do you want to invest this money so that you can easily see predictability in the growth and returns? So it's more on
the borrowers, less on the lenders.
It is always going to be a conversation. It takes a conversation to get things clear. But in terms for Africa, when you look at the setup of things across the world, and when you see what happened during COVID, for example, and the effects it had, and then climate change issues affecting, converging on that. How we came out COVID, there was, for example, a discussion as to how the CDRs would be used to fill the gap. Well, there was agreement that that is the case. The special drawing rights should be looked upon to alleviate on some of the problems. But Africa had a very small part share of that, and that is about 33 billion, when actually the estimated amount would have gone over 100 billion. But at the same time, money is actually there. Those who go to the drawing rights, who drew from that, they didn't even need it. The developed countries didn't need that amount of money. And the IMF did their best to say we can actually draw from this and support the African struggling economies to come up, which, by the way, has impact on the overall global growth,
right,
if it really came up well. So there has been a discussion, endless discussion about this, and we haven't come to the point where we can tap into this. So there is a discussion that must be held that actually is aimed at resolving issues rather than just dilly-dallying over them and continuing with the same problem.
Right. And before we wrap up, I wanted to ask you about the UK migrant situation and its partnership with Rwanda. We heard from a UN agency saying that sending asylum seekers may potentially put them in harm. I mean, why is it that you're so keen on this deal? What is the benefit that you see in this for Rwanda?
Well, first of all, we did not really beg anybody to work with us or to send migrants to Rwanda. It's an idea that developed to solve a problem. And migrant issues are about human capital gaps that exist and have these movements, but the origin can also be instability in different parts of the world. Mm-hmm. And the partnership, therefore, was forged around saying, how do you address this problem? And there came a development partnership around that, which would mean resettling the migrants who need to settle down and, you know, have the freedom to do what they want to do in places that they are stable. And in fact, the current UK migration problem that is being talked about came later. We started with resettling and receiving people from Libya who were stuck in Libya because of instability that developed in Libya, and there were many Africans coming from different parts of Africa, right, caught up in Libya, heading to Europe.
Right.
And we have, it started in 2018.
Right.
And we have had a number of them brought to Rwanda, processed, some stay, others have gone to different countries. Mm-hmm. But it was done proper and saved thousands of lives who were caught up in that situation. So from that, learning from that, that is how the UK, and there are other actually European countries that have been contacting us, right, to address this.
Other European countries?
Yes.
Looking into this. So before we're a little bit over time. Do you see this UK situation potentially going through by the end of the year? Do you believe that migrants will actually start being sent to Rwanda by the end of 2023?
Well, maybe a bigger part of the question should go to UK, because for us to receive them and process them working with UK, we are ready. UK has to be ready on their part, and that's how it works, and for overall good results.
All right, great. We have to leave it there. Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.